A girl with $5 million in cash. She must think this is a joke. The Meridian Club, Philadelphia. Underground transaction floor. 8 o'clock at night. Margaret Vance, transaction manager, stares at the young woman standing before her. Cheap coat, worn heels, faded bruises on her wrist. In Margaret's mind, this appearance and $5 million cannot possibly match. She grabs the leather briefcase, dumps it open, watches the cash scatter across the marble floor. Fraud. Thief. Get this trash out of here. 23 people in that room watch Eliza Hartwell stand in silence. No one helps. No one speaks. She is nothing to them. Then the air shifts. From the darkest corner of the room, a figure rises. Slow, deliberate. Every step echoes like a death sentence. Margaret does not see him yet. She is still laughing. Then she turns. Her face drains white. Her voice cracks. Mr. Ashford. Everything freezes. The man the entire city fears to name just watched her throw money at a girl. His money. His girl. Why is he here? Who is Eliza Hartwell to him? Stay. Because in 47 minutes, 23 witnesses will watch Margaret Vance realize whose money she scattered on the floor, and why the words Mr. Ashford left her lips far too late to save her. This is real. This starts now. If this satisfies you, give it a like. If it moves you, share it. Subscribe, so you never miss what satisfies next. Now let us go back to the beginning. 6:15 in the morning. The alarm rings. Eliza Hartwell opens her eyes in an 18-square-meter studio apartment tucked into the basement of an old apartment building on the outskirts of Philadelphia. There are no windows, no natural light, only the sound of water dripping from a rusted pipe overhead and the smell of dampness soaked into every wall. She is 27 years old. This is the 4th year she has lived here. 4 years of waking up in darkness. 4 years of wondering whether today will be any different from yesterday. The answer is always no. Eliza sits up, her feet touching the cold concrete floor. She reaches for a small tin box hidden beneath her pillow. Yesterday's tips. She pours them out and counts each bill. $12, $17, $22, $32. She stops. $32 for 12 hours of work. 2 back-to-back shifts at the cheap diner on the corner of Kensington. Swollen feet, an aching back, and $32. This month's rent is $450. She has $280. She is short $170. The deadline is tomorrow. The landlord knocked twice last week. The 3rd time he won't knock. He'll change the lock. Eliza looks down at her wrist. A bruise. 5 fingerprints pressed into her skin, already fading from purple to yellow. Last week, when Priscilla dragged her into the notary office to sign papers, she didn't know what she was signing. She never does. For 12 years now, she has never been allowed to know. She only knows that every time she finishes signing, her stepfather Raymond calls Les to scream at her for 1 week. Every time she finishes signing, Priscilla disappears for 1 month. That is how the Hartwell family loves her. Through absence, through the silence between each act of exploitation, Eliza stands and steps into the cramped bathroom. The mirror is cracked. The faucet is rusted. She looks at her reflection and sees a 27-year-old woman who looks 35. Dark circles under her eyes. Hollowed cheeks. Eyes that once held light, now carrying only exhaustion. She can't remember the last time she smiled. Maybe before her mother died. Maybe 15 years ago. She also can't remember the last time anyone asked if she was okay. If anyone looked at her as a human being instead of a tool. Eliza gets dressed. An old coat, faded at the elbows. Heels worn down at the tips. Bought from a thrift store 3 years ago for $5. She looks at herself in the mirror once more. This is everything she has. This is everything she is. A girl no one needs. A name on documents she doesn't understand. A shadow living underground, waiting for something to change but never daring to believe that it will. Her phone vibrates. Eliza looks at the screen. Raymond Hartwell. Her heart tightens. Her stepfather never calls unless he needs something from her. And every time he needs something, her life gains another bruise. She answers the call. Raymond's voice fills the line, and everything begins to change. 15 years ago, Eliza's mother died. End-stage lung cancer. No money for treatment, no insurance. Only 6 months spent waiting for death to arrive. Eliza was 12 years old, sitting beside a public hospital bed, holding her mother's hand and listening to her final words. "You have to be strong. You have to live. I'm sorry I can't stay with you longer." Then her mother closed her eyes, and Eliza became an orphan. Her biological father had left before she could even speak. No name, no address, no memory. Just an empty space on her birth certificate. Her mother remarried Raymond Hartwell when Eliza was 8. 4 years under the same roof. Raymond never looked at her like a daughter. He looked at her like an add-on, a piece of the deal that came with marrying her mother. When her mother died, Eliza thought Raymond would throw her out onto the street. She had prepared herself for that, but he didn't throw her out. He kept her. And that was the beginning of 12 years of hell. The first time she signed papers, Eliza was 13. Raymond placed a stack of documents in front of her and pointed to the last line. Sign here. What is this? You don't need to know. Just sign. And she did. Because she had no choice. Because the roof over her head belonged to Raymond. Because the food in the refrigerator belonged to Raymond. Because she was 13, alone in the world, and Raymond was the only thing standing between her and the street. At 15, she discovered she was the owner of 3 companies, her name on business licenses, her name on bank accounts, her name on office leases. She didn't know what those companies did. She didn't know where the money came from or where it went. She only knew that every few months, Raymond took her to some office, met some man in a suit, and had her sign papers she wasn't allowed to read. At 18, the police knocked on the door. 2 officers and a tax agent. They read her name. Eliza Hartwell. You are under arrest for tax evasion and money laundering. The amount involved was $1,200,000. She stood there at 18, not understanding what was happening. $1,200,000. She had never seen that kind of money. She worked part-time at a laundromat making $7 an hour. She didn't have a single dollar to her name, but on paper, she was the owner of companies that had moved millions of dollars through accounts in her name. Raymond hired a lawyer, a good one, an expensive one. The case dragged on for 8 months. In the end, Eliza was acquitted due to lack of evidence that she had directly participated in running the businesses. She was a victim. She had been exploited. That's what the lawyer said in court. But no one was charged. Raymond remained free. The companies were shut down. But the money had vanished long before. And Eliza, 18 years old, walked out of the courthouse with a marked record, a stained future, and Raymond waiting outside. He didn't say a word. He just looked at her. That look said, "You owe me. You will always owe me." And she paid that debt. For the next 9 years. How many documents she signed, she couldn't count. How many companies bore her name, she didn't know. She only knew that every time she hesitated, Priscilla appeared. Raymond's biological daughter, 5 years older than Eliza, raised in comfort while Eliza grew up in fear. Priscilla didn't hit with her hands. She hit with words, with contempt. With sentences like, "You're just a bastard your mother left behind, and if it weren't for my father, you'd be dead on the street." And sometimes, when Eliza didn't obey fast enough, Priscilla used her hands too. The bruise on Eliza's wrist last week was proof. 27 years old. 12 years as a living stamp for Raymond Hartwell. 12 years of signing her name on things she didn't understand. 12 years of wondering when the police would come back, and knowing that next time, there wouldn't be a lawyer to save her. The phone was still pressed to her ear. Raymond's voice was still talking, and what he said next made the blood in Eliza's veins turn cold. Raymond's voice trembled. Eliza had never heard him tremble before. For 12 years, Raymond Hartwell had always been the one giving orders. Cold, controlled, never revealing a single weakness. But the voice on the phone now was not the Raymond she knew. This was the voice of a man who was afraid. Afraid enough to forget his pride. "Tonight you have to do something for me." Raymond spoke fast, urgent, as if someone were counting down his remaining time. "There's a briefcase. Priscilla will bring it to you. Inside is money. You take it to the Meridian Club. The basement. Exactly 8 o'clock tonight. Give it to a woman named Margaret Vance." Eliza stayed silent. The Meridian Club. She had heard that name before. Everyone in Philadelphia had. On the surface, it was a luxury restaurant for the elite, but everyone knew the basement was where deals that light was never meant to touch took place. "How much money?" she asked, her voice dry. There was a pause. Then Raymond answered, $5 million, cash." Eliza almost dropped the phone. $5 million. She had never seen $5 million. She wasn't sure she could even imagine what $5 million looked like. "Why me? Why not you? Or Priscilla? Don't ask." Raymond cut her off. His voice suddenly sharpened, like a blade against skin. "You just take it there. Give it to Margaret Vance. Then leave. Don't look at anyone. Don't talk to anyone. Don't turn back. Do you understand?" But what if there's a problem? What if they ask who I am? There won't be any problem, Raymond said quickly. So quickly that Eliza knew he was lying. Just do what I say. Don't ruin this. Then he hung up. No goodbye. No further explanation. Just an order and an empty line. Eliza stared at the darkening screen of her phone. Her hands were shaking, not from the cold, but because she knew something was wrong. Raymond was never afraid. But today, he was. And whatever could make Raymond Hartwell afraid was something that could kill Eliza Hartwell. She arrived at the diner at 7 in the morning. Her shift began like every other day. Tables to wipe, customers to serve, tips to count. But her mind wasn't there. $5 million, the Meridian Club, the basement, 8 o'clock tonight. The words kept circling her thoughts like a curse. Nina Torres, the only coworker who actually talked to her, noticed something was wrong. You look pale. What's going on? Eliza hesitated. Then she told her. Not everything, just the Meridian Club. Just that she had to go there tonight. Nina dropped the tray she was holding. The crash of metal against the floor rang out sharply. But Eliza didn't look at the tray. She looked at Nina's face. And she saw fear. Don't go there, Nina whispered, as if afraid someone might hear. You don't understand. That place isn't for people like us. What do you mean, people like us? It means people who have nothing. Nina grabbed Eliza's hand, gripping it tightly. There's someone there. Nobody says his name, but he's everywhere. Who is he? Nina was silent for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was barely a breath. People say that when he looks at someone, that person no longer has a future. When he stays silent, that person no longer has a present. I don't know who he is. I just know that anyone who crosses him disappears. Eliza pulled her hand back. Cold. Her whole body felt cold. But she had no choice. Raymond had given an order, and for 12 years, she had never dared to disobey Raymond. 8 o'clock tonight. She would be there, no matter who he was. 5 o'clock in the afternoon. Eliza's shift ends. She steps out of the diner, the smell of grease still clinging to her hair and clothes. 3 hours left. In 3 hours she will have to walk into a place, Nina said, people disappear. In 3 hours she will face something that even Raymond is afraid of. She stands at the street corner, waiting. Priscilla said she would meet her here. And Priscilla is never late. She hates Eliza enough to always arrive on time, just to make sure Eliza doesn't get a single extra minute of peace. A sleek black Mercedes pulls up to the curb. The door opens. Priscilla Hartwell steps out. 32 years old. Designer dress. Expensive handbag. Freshly done nails. The scent of Chanel spreads through the air like a declaration that she and Eliza do not belong to the same world. Priscilla looks Eliza up and down. That look. Eliza knows that look. 12 years of seeing it. The look reserved for trash. You look disgusting, Priscilla says, opening the trunk and taking out a brown leather briefcase. It isn't new. The corners are worn. The handle is old. But it is heavy. Very heavy. Priscilla throws the briefcase into Eliza's hands. The weight makes her stumble, almost falling. Take it there. Give it to Margaret Vance. Then disappear. What's inside? Eliza asks before she can stop herself. The slap comes so fast she doesn't even see it. Priscilla's hand strikes her cheek. Hard, sharp, burning. Eliza staggers back, her face on fire, her ears ringing for a moment. 2 passers-by see it. They look away. No one intervenes. No one cares. A poorly dressed girl being slapped by a wealthy woman in the street. Nothing to see here. Don't ask, Priscilla says slowly, each word measured, as if speaking to an animal. You're just my father's dog. A dog doesn't ask what its master is doing. A dog just obeys. Do you understand? Eliza says nothing. She only nods. As she has nodded for 12 years, Priscilla gets back into the car. The door closes. The car drives away, leaving Eliza standing alone on the sidewalk with the heavy briefcase in her hands and the burning mark of a slap on her cheek. She doesn't open the briefcase. She doesn't dare, but she can feel its weight, the weight of something that could kill her. Eliza doesn't know what's inside that briefcase, but if she were to open it, she would see $5 million in cash. Bundles of $100 bills, carefully wrapped, stacked on top of each other. Real money. Every bill real. But that isn't all. Beneath the stacks of cash, there is a brown envelope. Inside the envelope is a file. A detailed file of every money laundering operation Raymond Hartwell has carried out over the past 5 years. Bank accounts. Shell companies. Money flowing in and out. And the name that appears at the bottom of every page: Constantine Ashford. Constantine Ashford's money. Constantine Ashford's network. And Raymond Hartwell, over the past 5 years, has siphoned $20 million from that network and funneled it to Constantine's rival. $20 million. Betrayal. And now, someone has discovered it. Raymond knows he is going to die. He knows Constantine Ashford doesn't forgive. He knows there is nowhere in this world to hide from the man whose name all of Philadelphia is afraid to say out loud. So he needs a sacrifice. Someone to take the blame. A face for Constantine to look at instead of his own. Eliza Hartwell, the late wife's daughter. The name on every company. The one with a marked record from money laundering 9 years ago. Perfect. If everything collapses, Eliza will take the fall. Raymond will say he didn't know. Priscilla will say she had nothing to do with it. And Eliza, the girl with no one and nothing, will disappear like the people Nina talked about. No future. No present. Eliza stands on the sidewalk, holding the briefcase that contains her death sentence. And she has no idea. She only knows that at 8 o'clock tonight, she has to go to the Meridian Club. She only knows that she has no other choice. She doesn't know that somewhere in this city, a man is staring at her photograph on a screen. And that man is waiting. At the same time, somewhere else in the city. The top floor of a nameless building. No sign, no plaque, nothing to indicate what exists inside. Only glass walls looking down over all of Philadelphia, as if the entire city were a chessboard. And the man sitting in that room is the one who moves the pieces. Constantine Ashford, 37 years old, black hair slicked back, a black suit without a single wrinkle, eyes the color of cooled steel. He sits behind a desk of dark oak, back straight, hands resting on the arms of the chair. There is nothing on the desk except a screen. The screen shows the image of a young woman standing on a sidewalk, clutching a leather briefcase, her cheek red from a recent slap. Eliza Hartwell. Theodore Blake stands behind Constantine's left shoulder, 45 years old. The right hand of the boss for 15 years. Never asks why, never hesitates, only executes. She is heading to the Meridian Club, sir, Theodore says, his tone flat, as if reading a weather report. Raymond Hartwell sent her with the money. $5 million. And the file. Constantine doesn't turn around. His eyes remain on the screen. On the girl in the cheap coat and the worn heels. On the bruise on her wrist. On the way, she lowers her head as if the entire world is pressing down on her shoulders. "What file?" he asks, his voice low, slow, without emotion. "A file detailing Raymond's transactions over the past 5 years. Theodore replies. $20 million he transferred to Morrison. It's all in there. Raymond is trying to pin it on this girl. Silence. The room is so quiet it feels as if one could hear Philadelphia breathing beneath it. Constantine keeps watching the screen, watching Eliza start walking toward the bus stop. Her steps are heavy. Her shoulders are slumped. She looks like someone walking toward a place she knows she won't return from. "Does she know anything?" Constantine asks. "No, sir." Theodore shakes his head. "She doesn't know anything. For 12 years, Raymond used her as a name holder. She only signed. She was never allowed to know, never allowed to ask." Silence again. Then Constantine speaks, his tone unchanged, yet something in it makes Theodore go rigid. Raymond Hartwell thinks he can use this girl as a sacrifice, thinks he can dump the blame on her and disappear, thinks I'll kill her instead of him. Constantine stands, slowly, every movement under absolute control. He walks to the glass wall and looks down at the city. Raymond Hartwell is wrong. Theodore doesn't ask what his boss plans to do. 15 years working for Constantine Ashford taught him one thing. When Constantine says someone is wrong, that person is already dead. They just don't know it yet. "Prepare the car," Constantine says, his eyes still fixed on the distance. "I'm going to the Meridian Club tonight." Theodore nods and leaves the room. Constantine stands alone by the glass. The image of Eliza Hartwell remains in his mind. The cheap coat, the worn heels, the bruise on her wrist, and her eyes, the eyes of someone used to being used to no one asking if it hurts. He will go there tonight. He will see what happens. And after that, he will decide. 7:45 in the evening. Eliza stands in front of the Meridian Club. From the outside, it looks like any other upscale restaurant in Philadelphia. A sleek glass facade, warm golden light glowing behind drawn curtains, expensive cars lined up along the street, men in tailored suits, women wearing glittering jewelry, the scent of costly perfume and Cuban cigars mixing in the air. Another world. A world Eliza does not belong to. She looks down at herself. An old coat, its color faded. Worn heels bought from a thrift store. The heavy leather briefcase in her hand. And the mark of Priscilla's slap still burning red on her cheek. She looks like someone who wandered in by mistake. She is someone who wandered in by mistake, but she has no choice. She pushes the door and steps inside. The main hall of the Meridian Club glows beneath crystal chandeliers. Polished marble floors reflect the figures of elegant guests dining quietly. Servers move like shadows, smooth and precise. Classical music drifts from somewhere unseen, low enough to create atmosphere, never loud enough to interrupt conversations worth billions. Eliza feels every eye turned toward her. She does not belong here. Everyone can see it. She walks straight to the reception desk. A middle-aged man in a black suit looks her up and down. His gaze lingers on her worn heels, on her faded coat, on the old leather briefcase in her hand. "How can I help you?" His voice is polite but cold. Polite in the way people are polite to trash before throwing it away. "I need to see Margaret Vance." "The basement," Eliza says, her voice trembling slightly despite her effort to control it. "The basement?" The man raises an eyebrow. "Do you have an appointment?" "Raymond Hartwell sent me." A brief silence. Then the man's demeanor changes. Not warmer, just more cautious. He lifts the phone, murmurs something too quiet to hear, then nods. "Follow me." They cross the main hall, slip through a discreet door in the corner, and descend a spiral staircase lit by dim lamps. The air changes, colder, heavier, as if the light and elegance above are only a shell hiding what lives underneath. 2 layers of security doors. 2 large men standing guard, their eyes scanning Eliza as if measuring a potential threat. Then the doors open. The basement spreads out before her. A wide space with high ceilings, designed like a private club for those who hold power. 23 people scattered across the room. Negotiation tables, murmured conversations, the smell of expensive cigars, the scent of aged whiskey, and money, the smell of money everywhere. Eliza feels like a mouse stepping into a snake pit. Margaret Vance stands beside one of the negotiation tables. 43 years old, hair pulled into a tight bun, a perfectly tailored black suit, a pearl necklace resting at her throat. 16 years managing transactions in this place. 16 years watching the rich and powerful pass through. 16 years learning how to assess a person in a single glance. She looks at Eliza, and Eliza sees that look. The look of appraisal. Eyes sliding from worn heels to a cheap coat, pausing at the bruise on her wrist, then settling on her face where the red imprint of a slap still lingers. A look that reaches its conclusion before Eliza speaks a word. The conclusion that she is not worth respect. The conclusion that she does not belong here. The conclusion that she is trash. "Who are you?" Margaret asks, her voice cold as stone. "Eliza Hartwell. Raymond Hartwell sent me. I'm here to deliver this." She lifts the briefcase. Margaret does not take it. She only looks at the briefcase, then at Eliza, and then she laughs. The laughter echoes through the basement. 23 heads turn. "Raymond Hartwell sent you?" Margaret scoffs. "Look at you. Do you even know where you are?" Eliza does not answer. She just stands there, clutching the briefcase, feeling 23 pairs of eyes watching her like a spectacle. She does not know that in the farthest corner of the room, hidden in shadow, a man has just arrived, and he is looking at her. Margaret steps closer to Eliza. Each footstep echoes against the stone floor like a threat. The 23 people in the room stop whatever they are doing. All of them turn to look at Eliza, not out of concern, out of curiosity, curious to see how the mouse will be torn apart by the cat. "Open it," Margaret orders, pointing at the briefcase. "I was only told to hand it to you," Eliza says softly. "I wasn't told to open it." "I said open it," Margaret repeats, her voice sharper. "You think you can bring a briefcase in here without me checking it? You think I'm stupid?" Eliza has no choice. She sets the briefcase on the nearest table, her hands trembling slightly as she unlocks it. The lid opens, and the money is revealed. $5 million. Stacks of $100 bills piled neatly together, sealed inside clear plastic wraps. More money than Eliza has ever imagined. So much money that she feels dizzy just looking at it. Margaret looks into the case, then she looks at Eliza, and a slow smile spreads across her lips. The smile of a predator who has found its prey. Margaret picks up a stack of bills, pretending to inspect it. She flips it back and forth, holds it under the light. even brings it to her nose to smell it. A performance staged for 23 spectators. Then she throws the stack onto the table. Hard. The sound of paper striking wood snaps through the room. Counterfeit, Margaret announces loudly, loud enough for the entire basement to hear. This is fake money. Eliza stands there as if struck by lightning. No, it's not. I don't know. I was only told to bring it here. You don't know? Margaret steps closer. Her face inches from Eliza's. You bring $5 million in fake cash into my house, and you say you don't know? It's not fake. Eliza stammers. I don't know anything about money. Shut up. Margaret cuts her off. She turns to the two men standing closest. Security, hold this girl. The two large men step forward. Each grips one of Eliza's arms. Tight, painful. Eliza doesn't struggle. She forgot how to struggle a long time ago. 12 years of control taught her that struggling only makes things worse. She just stands there, pinned between two men, watching Margaret Vance continue her performance. Margaret turns back to the briefcase. She yanks it off the table, flips it upside down, and dumps everything onto the floor. Money scatters everywhere. Stacks of $100 bills spill out of their plastic wraps, rolling across the marble floor. $5 million lying at the feet of the wealthy like trash. Look at this, Margaret says loudly, her voice dripping with contempt. Look at this girl. She thinks she can carry $5 million in here? She thinks Raymond Hartwell would trust someone like this? She kicks a stack of bills toward Eliza. The money hits her leg and falls away. A scam, Margaret continues. A thief. Garbage. Who let you walk in here? Who made you think you could stand in the same room as these people? Eliza says nothing. She can't. Her throat tightens. Not because she wants to cry. She forgot how to cry a long time ago. But because the humiliation is so overwhelming she can barely breathe. 23 people watch. No one speaks. No one steps forward. A middle-aged man in the corner snorts. Raymond Hartwell sent his stepdaughter? He's really out of options, isn't he? Laughter spreads. A few others join in. The sound of it slices into Eliza like knives. She stands there, surrounded by scattered money, her arms locked in the grip of two men, while 23 people laugh at her. No one helps. No one even looks at her like she is human. She is just a joke. Entertainment for them on a dull night. Throw her out. Margaret waves a hand. Call Raymond Hartwell. Tell him not to send trash here next time. The two guards start dragging Eliza away. Hard. Rough. She is yanked forward, her foot catching on a stack of bills, her knee slamming into the floor. Pain. Pain sharp enough to feel like her bone has cracked. But no one cares. Margaret stands there, watching her being dragged across the floor with satisfaction in her eyes. The 23 people keep watching, keep laughing, keep being indifferent. Eliza looks up. Her eyes sweep across the room. 23 faces. Not one of them looks at her like she is human. This is her life. Always the same. Used, discarded, humiliated, and never once defended. Then she sees something. At the farthest corner of the room, in the shadows, there is someone standing there. Someone who isn't laughing. Someone who isn't indifferent. Someone looking at her with an expression she can't understand. Not contempt. Not pity. Just watching. Cold. And waiting. Eliza's heart skips in a strange beat. She doesn't know who he is. She doesn't know why. In the darkest moment of her life, her eyes are drawn to that place. She only knows that those eyes are on her, and 1 second later, the darkness begins to move. The darkness moves. No, not darkness. A man. The man steps out from the deepest corner of the room, slowly, 1 step at a time. No rush. No need to rush. Because each of his footsteps echoes across the stone floor like a funeral drum. Because each step makes the air in the room grow heavier. Eliza is still kneeling on the floor, her knee throbbing, her arms moments ago held tight by security. She watches the man approach. Tall, broad-shouldered, a black suit without a single crease, as if it were made solely for his body. Black hair slicked back, and his eyes the color of cooled steel, eyes without emotion, the eyes of someone who has seen too much to still feel anything at all. Something changes in the room. Eliza feels it before she understands it. Laughter dies. Conversations die. Whispers die. There is only the sound of his shoes on stone. And silence. Silence heavy as lead. 23 people in the room. No one looks at Eliza anymore. All of them are staring at the man walking forward. And on their faces there is no curiosity. No amusement. Only fear. Real fear. Margaret is still standing there, her back to the man. She hasn't seen him yet. She is still savoring her victory, still looking at Eliza kneeling on the floor with contempt, still smiling. Drag her out. Margaret waves at the guards. I don't want to see her. Get rid of her. A voice cuts through the room. Low, deep, not loud, yet everyone hears it. Everyone freezes, including the two guards who had been holding Eliza. They release her immediately. So fast it feels like her skin burns. They step back, bow their heads, and don't dare look up. Eliza collapses forward without support. She catches herself with her hands, her knee still screaming in pain, and looks up at the man who stopped them. He stands 5 steps away, standing like a statue carved from shadow, standing there and watching. Not watching her, watching Margaret Vance. Margaret turns around, slowly, as if her body is resisting the command of her mind, as if she doesn't want to see what is behind her. Then she sees him, and Eliza witnesses something she has never seen in her life. The color drains from Margaret's face, slowly, as if blood is leaving her body. Her mouth opens, but no sound comes out. Her eyes widen. Her hands begin to shake. Her entire body begins to tremble. Mr. Ashford. The 2 words fall from Margaret's lips like a dying breath. The 2 words echo through the silent room like a death bell. Mr. Ashford. Eliza doesn't know the name, but she sees the reaction around her. 23 people. All of them lower their heads. All of them step back. All of them try to make themselves as small as possible, as if they are trying to disappear. This is the man Nina talked about, the man no one dares to name, the man who, when he looks at someone, leaves them without a future, when he stays silent, leaves them without a present. And he is here. He has been here all along. He has seen everything, seen Margaret throw the money onto the floor, seen her call Eliza a scammer, a thief, trash, seen 23 people laugh at a girl kneeling on the ground, and he stayed silent. Silent until now. Constantine Ashford walks past Margaret as if she doesn't exist. He goes straight to Eliza, stops in front of her, looks down at her kneeling on the floor, her knee bruised, her hands scraped, her face still marked by Priscilla's slap. Then he does something that makes the entire room stop breathing. He holds out his hand. He says nothing. He explains nothing. He simply holds out his hand. The hand of the most powerful man in Philadelphia. The hand that with a single gesture can make people disappear. That hand is waiting for her. Eliza looks at the hand, then she looks up at his face. The cold gray eyes look back at her. No emotion, no pity, but no contempt either, just looking as if he is seeing her, truly seeing her. For the first time in 27 years of her life, someone looks at Eliza Hartwell like a human being. She places her hand in his, and Constantine Ashford pulls her to her feet. Eliza rises to her feet. Her legs tremble. Her knee still aches from the fall. But Constantine's hand keeps her steady. A warm hand. A strong hand. The hand of the man this entire city fears. And that hand is holding her as if she matters. Eliza doesn't understand. She doesn't understand why. She doesn't understand who she is to this man. She only knows that for the first time in a very long while, someone is standing on her side. Margaret Vance is still standing there, trembling, her face pale as a corpse. She opens her mouth, trying to say something, but only broken whispers come out. Mr. Ashford, I didn't know. The money was fake. I was only protecting the process. Constantine doesn't look at her. He keeps looking at Eliza, at the bruise on her wrist, at the slap still burning red on her cheek, at her knee already swelling. He looks at every injury on her body as if he is memorizing them, one by one. Another man steps out of the shadows behind Constantine. Theodore Blake, 45 years old, an expressionless face, eyes cold as stone. 15 years as Constantine Ashford's right hand taught him how to be invisible when needed and how to be a nightmare when ordered. Theodore steps up beside Constantine, a phone in his hand. He doesn't look at Margaret. He looks at the crowd of 23 people shrinking into the corners of the room. Then he speaks, his voice flat, like reading an obituary. Ms. Vance, the money on the floor is real. Every bill is real, transferred from Mr. Ashford's accounts through Raymond Hartwell to this location. Ms. Hartwell was designated by Mr. Ashford to complete this transaction. Silence. Long silence. Silence heavy as a mountain. Margaret stands there, mouth open, eyes wide, like a fish thrown onto land, gasping for air. The meaning of Theodore's words slowly sinks into her mind. Real money. Constantine Ashford's money. The girl she just humiliated, threw money at, called a scammer, a thief, trash, is Constantine Ashford's person. She has just insulted the most powerful man in Philadelphia through his chosen representative, in front of 23 witnesses. Mr. Ashford, Margaret stammers, her voice stripped of all former arrogance, leaving only fear. Pure fear. I didn't know. Please. I didn't know she was yours. If I had known, I would never. She stops, realizing what she just said, realizing she has admitted that her treatment of Eliza depended entirely on who Eliza belonged to. Not on right or wrong, not on what Eliza had done, but only on the fact that Eliza looked poor, looked unimportant, looked like she had no one backing her, so she could be humiliated, could have money thrown at her, could be called trash. Constantine finally looks at Margaret, and that look makes her step back as if she has been struck. 47 minutes ago, she walked into this room, Constantine says, his voice low, slow, each word falling like a hammer. 47 minutes. You had 47 minutes to treat her like a human being. You chose not to. You looked at her, and what did you see? A cheap coat, worn heels, a bruise on her hand. You saw someone unprotected, and you decided you could do whatever you wanted. Mr. Ashford, please. Margaret drops to her knees, right in the middle of the money she had thrown. Her knees sink into $100 bills. I was wrong. I'm sorry. Please give me a chance. Constantine doesn't look at her anymore. He turns to Eliza, and when he speaks to her, his voice is different, still low, still deep, but softer, lighter, as if he is trying not to frighten her. Are you hurt? 4 words, simple words, and Eliza feels as if she has been struck in the chest, not with pain, but with the question she hasn't heard in how long. 15 years ago. Her mother, on a hospital bed, before closing her eyes. Does it hurt? And since then, no one asked. No one cared. Not Raymond, not Priscilla, not anyone in 27 years of her life. Until now. Until this man. Eliza opens her mouth, but her voice catches. I'm fine. Constantine looks at her, looks for a long moment, as if he knows she is lying, as if he can see every wound she is hiding. Not only the wounds on her body, but the wounds inside. The wounds of 12 years of being used. The wounds of 27 years of being unloved. Then he nods, slightly, as if accepting her answer even if he doesn't believe it. He turns to Theodore and says 2 words. Theodore, handle it. Just 2 words. No explanation. No instruction. Just 2 words. But those 2 words make Margaret Vance break down crying on the spot, crying like a child. Because she understands. Those 2 words mean her career is over. The life she knows is over. Everything she has is over. Theodore nods and pulls out his phone. Constantine places a hand on Eliza's back, gentle but firm, and guides her toward the exit. They pass Margaret kneeling and sobbing. Past the 23 people with heads bowed, afraid to look up, past the money scattered across the floor. And Eliza, for the first time in her life, walks out of hell with someone beside her. The black car glides through the streets of Philadelphia in silence. Eliza sits in the back seat beside Constantine. She doesn't know where they are going. She doesn't ask. She is too tired to ask, too drained, too hollow. What just happened in the basement of the Meridian Club is still spinning in her head like a nightmare that hasn't ended. Money scattered across the floor, mocking laughter, 23 contemptuous faces, and then he appeared. The man sitting beside her now. The man the entire city fears. The man who pulled her to her feet while everyone else looked at her like trash. Eliza glances at Constantine. He is looking out the window, his face unreadable, gray steel eyes reflecting the streetlights sliding past. He doesn't speak. He doesn't explain. He doesn't demand anything. He is simply silent. And that silence, strangely, doesn't frighten Eliza. It makes her feel safe. For the first time in a very long time, the car stops in front of a high-rise building in the heart of the city. No name, no sign, just glass and steel and the night sky mirrored on its polished surface. Constantine opens the car door, steps out, then waits for her. Eliza follows him inside, through an empty lobby, into a private elevator. Up to the top floor, the elevator doors open, and Eliza steps into another world. A vast penthouse, high ceilings, floor-to-ceiling glass walls overlooking all of Philadelphia glittering below. Minimalist but expensive furnishings. Black leather sofas, dark oak tables, abstract art on the walls that Eliza guesses is worth more than the decaying apartment she rents. This is where he lives. This is his world. And she, in her cheap coat and worn heels, stands in the middle of it like an ink stain on white paper. "You will stay here tonight," Constantine says, his voice still low and even. Not a question, a statement. "Why?" Eliza asks. Her voice is hoarse with exhaustion. "Why did you help me? Why did you bring me here? Who are you?" Constantine looks at her. For a long moment, as if weighing how much to say. Then he walks to his desk, opens a drawer, and takes out a thick brown envelope. He places it on the table in front of Eliza. "Read it." Eliza takes the envelope, her hands trembling slightly. She opens it. Inside is a file, dozens of pages, bank accounts, transfer receipts, contracts, and her name. Her name everywhere. Eliza Hartwell. Director. Eliza Hartwell. Authorized signatory. Eliza Hartwell. Account holder. Companies she has never heard of. Amounts of money she has never seen. And at the bottom of every page, another name. Constantine Ashford. "What is this?" Eliza whispers, her eyes still locked on the numbers. "This is 12 years of your life." Constantine replies. 12 years Raymond Hartwell used you as a shield. Used your name to open companies. Used your signature to move money. My money. Eliza looks up, eyes wide. "Your money?" $20 million. Constantine says slowly, one word at a time. "Raymond Hartwell worked for me. He managed part of my financial network. Over the past 5 years, he siphoned $20 million from that network and transferred it to my rival. He thought I wouldn't notice. He was wrong." Eliza feels as if she is sinking, as if the floor beneath her has vanished. $20 million. Raymond stole $20 million from this man. And she is the one whose name is on everything. She is the one who signed all the documents. She is the one who would take the blame if everything came to light. "The briefcase tonight," Eliza says, her voice shaking. $5 million and the file. "Raymond sent me there. He wanted to blame you." Constantine finishes the sentence for her. "He knew I had discovered the truth. He knew I would come for him. So he needed a sacrifice. Someone for me to look at instead of him. Someone whose name is on every document. Someone no one would protect. You, Eliza. You were his sacrifice." Eliza stands there. She doesn't speak. She doesn't cry. She doesn't scream. She just stands there and feels 12 years of her life collapse. 12 years she believed she was paying a debt to Raymond. 12 years she believed that if she behaved, if she obeyed, everything would be fine. But no, Raymond never intended for her to be fine. From the beginning, she was the expendable piece. From the beginning, she was the one meant to be pushed forward to take the bullets when the war came. "Why are you telling me this?" Eliza asks, her voice rough. "You could kill me. You could blame me the way Raymond wanted. Why are you helping me?" Constantine is silent for a moment. Then he speaks, his tone unchanged, but something in his gray eyes softens just slightly. "Because you are not guilty. Raymond is, and I do not punish the innocent." Silence. The penthouse is silent. Philadelphia glitters beyond the glass like millions of stars, and Eliza stands there, in the world of the most powerful man in the city, and for the first time in 12 years, she knows the truth. The truth about Raymond. The truth about herself. The truth that she was never a person to the Hartwell family. She was only a tool. But tonight, that tool has been seen as human by someone at last. 3 days later, Eliza is still in Constantine's penthouse. She is not being held. She can leave anytime she wants, but she doesn't leave, because she has nowhere to go. Her basement apartment has likely already had the locks changed by the landlord. Raymond and Priscilla are surely looking for her. And out there, the world is still a place she does not belong to. At least here, inside this quiet space, she is safe. At least here, someone has seen her as a human being. Theodore Blake arrives on the afternoon of the 3rd day. He brings a laptop and a thick folder. Constantine is sitting at his desk, reading documents. Eliza sits on the sofa by the window, looking out at the city below. Over the past 3 days, she has done this often, looking outward, thinking, trying to understand where her life has turned. "The report on Margaret Vance, sir," Theodore says, placing the folder on the desk. Eliza does not intend to listen, but the room is too quiet. Every word Theodore speaks reaches her ears. Her personal and joint accounts were frozen on the 1st day. Theodore begins. "A total of 7 accounts, $380,000, all inaccessible. She has gone to the bank 4 times in the past 2 days. Each time she was turned away. Silence. Constantine says nothing. Theodore continues. Her husband, Richard Vance, filed for divorce yesterday morning. It appears someone sent him a detailed file of Mrs. Vance's extramarital affairs over the past 10 years. 4 different men. Photos, messages, hotel receipts. Mr. Vance has hired the best lawyer in the city and is seeking full custody of their child along with all marital assets. Eliza feels cold. She does not pity Margaret. That woman humiliated her in front of 23 people, threw money at her, called her a scammer, a thief, trash. But hearing what is happening to her, Eliza understands one thing. This is the power of Constantine Ashford. No guns, no threats, just silence, just an order. And a person's life turns to ash. Her son, Christopher Vance, 20 years old, a second-year student at Wharton, Theodore continues, was expelled this morning. The official reason is academic fraud. It appears the disciplinary board received a copy of his thesis, along with the original paper he plagiarized, along with evidence of purchasing grades in the previous 2 semesters. He is currently packing his belongings and leaving the dormitory. Constantine still says nothing. He only nods slightly, as if listening to a weather report. Anything else? He asks. Mrs. Vance went to the Meridian Club last night, Theodore replies. She knelt before Jonathan Mercer, the owner, and begged him to help. Begged to see you. Begged for a chance to apologize. Mercer's response? Constantine asks. He said he could not help her. Theodore answers. He said she touched someone belonging to Mr. Ashford, and no one in this city can save her. He told her to leave Philadelphia. As far as possible. As fast as possible. Silence. Constantine turns his chair toward the window, looking out at the city. Will she comply? He asks. She already has, sir. Theodore replies. This morning she purchased a one-way ticket to Denver. She told no one. Took nothing but a small suitcase. She will land in 4 hours, and after that, she will disappear. Good, Constantine says. 1 word. Just 1 word. Then he turns back to his desk and resumes reading, as if the conversation never happened. Theodore nods and leaves. Eliza sits on the sofa, her heart pounding. 3 days. Just 3 days. And Margaret Vance, the powerful woman from the basement of the Meridian Club, has lost everything. Money, husband, child, reputation, career, all turned to smoke because she humiliated the wrong person, because she looked at a poor girl and decided she was not worth respect. Eliza looks at Constantine. He is still reading, his face expressionless, as if destroying someone's life is something he does before breakfast. And perhaps it is. This is his world. This is his power. And Eliza, the girl from the basement, is standing right in the middle of it. Raymond Hartwell realizes Eliza did not come home on the 2nd day. He calls her. No answer. He calls again. No answer. He calls 20 times. 20 times the phone rings and then falls into silence. He goes to her basement apartment. The landlord says she has not returned for 3 days. The rent has not been paid. The locks have been changed. Her belongings are still inside. Not much. A few old clothes. A few books. A photograph of a woman who died 15 years ago. That is all. 27 years of a life reduced to a handful of cheap possessions. Raymond does not care about the belongings. He cares about what Eliza's disappearance means. She did not return after going to the Meridian Club. She did not make contact. She vanished as if she never existed. And that can only mean one thing. Constantine Ashford has acted. Raymond tries calling the Meridian Club. No one answers. He tries calling Margaret Vance. The number is no longer in service. He tries calling Jonathan Mercer. The secretary says Mr. Mercer is not available and will never be available to Raymond Hartwell. Then the money starts to be cut off. On the 3rd day, Raymond's main business account is frozen. $1,200,000. Inaccessible. The bank says there is an issue with documentation. Verification is required. The timeline for verification is unspecified. On the 4th day, Raymond's 2 largest partner companies announced termination of their contracts. No specific reason, no prior warning. Just a brief email. We no longer wish to work with you. Effective immediately. On the 5th day, the people who once called Raymond a friend stop answering his calls. Doors that were once wide open now remain shut. Smiles once offered to him turn into averted gazes. Raymond Hartwell, a man who once held a place in the Philadelphia underworld, becomes invisible. No one wants to see him. No one wants to be associated with him, because everyone knows what he has done. Everyone knows he betrayed Constantine Ashford. And everyone knows the price of standing beside a traitor. On the 6th day, the creditors begin to arrive, not one by one, all at once, as if someone sent them the same schedule. The first arrives at 8 in the morning, the last arrives at 10 at night. 14 creditors in a single day. 14 loans that Raymond has been servicing with Constantine's money for 5 years. Now the money is gone, the interest is unpaid, and they come for the principal. $3,800,000. Raymond does not have it. Raymond has nothing. Everything he owned was built on Constantine's money. Now that Constantine has taken it back, Raymond is left as an empty shell. Priscilla is the first to run. She sees the future. She sees the ship sinking, and she has no intention of going down with her father. On the 7th day, Priscilla disappears. No goodbye. No explanation. She takes all the cash from the safe, about $80,000, and boards a plane to somewhere unknown. Raymond does not know where. Raymond does not care. He has bigger problems than a daughter who has fled. He sits in what was once a luxurious house, now hollow and silent, staring at his phone, trying to call a single number. Constantine Ashford's number. No answer. He calls again. No answer. He calls hundreds of times over the next 3 days. Not once does anyone pick up. And that is when Raymond understands. Constantine does not kill him. Constantine does not need to kill him. Constantine only needs to take everything he has. Money, partners, friends, daughter, everything. And then let him live. Live among the ashes of his own making. Live and remember. Live and regret. Live knowing that everything he lost is because he underestimated a girl he believed no one would protect. Eliza Hartwell, the late wife's daughter he intended to use as a sacrifice. That girl is now somewhere in this city, protected by the most powerful man in Philadelphia. And Raymond Hartwell sits alone in the dark, waiting for the next creditors to knock on his door. 2 weeks pass. Eliza is still in the penthouse. No one tells her she has to stay. No one tells her she has to leave. Constantine never brings it up. He simply lets her remain, as if it is the most natural thing in the world, as if the penthouse has an empty space and she fits into it perfectly. Eliza begins to notice small things, things she is not sure she should be noticing. On the 4th day, there is fresh milk in the refrigerator. She doesn't drink black coffee. She likes her coffee with milk. She mentioned it once, in a brief exchange with Theodore, when he asked what she wanted in the morning. The next day, milk appears in the refrigerator, and from then on, it is always there. On the 6th day, she finds books on the bedside table in her room, 3 of them. A classic novel, a book on psychology, a volume of poetry. She once mentioned that she likes reading, in a casual conversation with Constantine, just 1 sentence. I used to read a lot, before everything became too exhausting to do anything but exist. She didn't think he heard her. She didn't think he cared. But the books appear anyway. On the 8th day, she realizes her clothes have been replaced. Not thrown away, simply added to. Beside her old outfits are new ones, simple, unshowy, but made from good fabric, fitting her as if someone knew her exact size. She doesn't ask. She doesn't know how to ask. She just wears them and feels, for the first time in a very long while, as if she deserves to wear something beautiful. Constantine is not in the penthouse much during the day. He has work. He has an empire to run. He has people like Raymond Hartwell to deal with. But every evening, he comes back, and every evening, they have dinner together. They don't talk much. They sit across from each other under soft golden light and eat. Sometimes Constantine asks if she needs anything. Sometimes Eliza says no. Sometimes they look at each other across the table and say nothing at all. But the silence is not heavy. It is warm. It is safe. It is something Eliza has never had with anyone. On the 12th night, Eliza can't sleep. She lies in bed, staring at the ceiling, thinking about everything that has happened. About Raymond, about Priscilla, about 12 years of being used, about the night at the Meridian Club, about the man who pulled her to her feet. She gets up, walks into the living room, and finds Constantine sitting there, alone, in the dark, looking out at the city through the glass wall. "Aren't you sleeping?" she asks softly. "I don't sleep much," he replies, without turning around. Eliza hesitates for a moment. Then she walks over and sits on the sofa beside him. Not too close, but not far either. Close enough to feel the warmth of his presence in the cold stillness of the late night. They sit in silence for a long time, watching the lights of Philadelphia shimmer below like a sea of stars. "Why did you save me?" Eliza finally asks. The question she has held inside for 2 weeks. You could have ignored it. You could have dealt with Raymond without caring about me. Why? Constantine is silent. Long enough that Eliza thinks he won't answer. Then he speaks, his voice lower than usual. I didn't save you. I simply didn't allow them to continue doing what they were doing. Is there a difference? Eliza asks. There is. Constantine turns to look at her. His gray eyes in the darkness are deep like the ocean. Saving someone is for them. What I did was because I don't accept injustice happening in front of me. I saw how Margaret treated you. I saw how the 23 people in that room looked at you like trash. I saw you kneeling on the floor and no one offering a hand. He pauses. And I saw that you didn't break. You didn't cry. You didn't beg. You just stood there and endured. As if you were used to being treated that way. As if you no longer expected anything from anyone. Eliza feels her chest tighten. She didn't know he had seen so much. She didn't know anyone could see her that clearly. I don't pity you, Constantine continues. Pity is for the weak. You aren't weak. You survived 12 years of hell and you're still standing. That isn't weakness. That is strength most people don't have. Silence. Eliza looks at him, and for the first time, she sees something different in those cold gray eyes. Not cruelty, not indifference, but understanding. The understanding of someone who has seen darkness and chosen to face it instead of turning away. Thank you, she says quietly, not for saving me, but for seeing me. Constantine doesn't speak. He only nods slightly. Then they sit there, in the dark, watching the city sleep beneath them. And for the first time in a very long time, Eliza doesn't feel alone. That night they talked until nearly dawn. Not about grand things, just fragments, small questions, short answers. But every fragment mattered. Every answer was a brick laying the foundation of something Eliza didn't dare name. She told him about her mother. For the first time in 15 years, she spoke about her mother to someone. My mother's name was Catherine, Eliza began, her voice light as breath. She worked at the corner bakery. Every day she came home with the smell of butter and sugar in her hair. I loved that smell. I still do. Every time I smell baked bread, I think of her. Constantine said nothing. He just sat there and listened. His gray eyes didn't blink. No judgment, no pity, just listening, as if what she was saying was the most important thing in the world. She had lung cancer, Eliza continued. They found it too late. Terminal stage. No money for treatment. No insurance. We had 6 months. 6 months to say goodbye. But how do you say goodbye when you're 12 years old and the only person who loves you is slowly dying in front of you? Her voice trembled. She didn't look at Constantine. She looked at the glass wall, at the city, at anything except his eyes, because she was afraid that if she did, she would shatter. On the last day, she held my hand and apologized, Eliza whispered. She apologized for not being able to stay with me longer. She apologized for leaving me alone in this world. She apologized for not being able to protect me from what was coming. As if it was her fault. As if getting cancer and dying was something she chose. Eliza stopped, swallowed. Her throat tightened until it was hard to breathe. After my mother died, Raymond said I owed him for letting me stay, owed him for not throwing me onto the street, owed him for feeding me, and I believed him. For 12 years I believed I owed him. For 12 years I did everything he told me to do because I thought that was how I paid my debt, because I thought I didn't deserve to be treated any better, because I thought my mother apologizing before she died meant she knew I would suffer, and that it was my fate. Silence. The penthouse was so quiet she could hear her own heartbeat. Then Constantine spoke. His voice was low, slow, heavy as stone. You don't owe anyone anything. Eliza turned to look at him. Her vision blurred. Not Raymond. Not Priscilla. Not anyone, Constantine continued. You don't owe anyone anything, because no one ever gave you anything. They didn't give you a home. They locked you in a basement. They didn't raise you. They used you. For 12 years, they took your name, your signature, your future, and called it repayment. That wasn't repayment. That was slavery. Eliza felt pain bloom in her chest, pain in a way she had never felt before. Not the pain of a wound, but the pain of something breaking open inside her. Something she had built over 15 years to protect herself. A wall to keep from feeling, to keep from remembering, to keep from hurting. And your mother, Constantine went on, his voice softening slightly. She didn't apologize because she did something wrong. She apologized because she knew this world would treat you cruelly once she was gone. She apologized because she loved you and couldn't protect you. That wasn't her fault. That was her love. Eliza broke. There was no other word for it. She broke. Tears spilled out before she could stop them. Down her cheeks, down her chin, onto her hands clenched in the fabric of the sofa. For the first time in 15 years, she cried. Not from pain, not from fear, but because someone had finally said what she had needed to hear for 15 years. She didn't owe anyone anything. Her mother loved her, and what happened to her wasn't her fault. Constantine didn't say anything else. He didn't hold her. He didn't touch her. He just sat there beside her, in the dark, and let her cry. Let her finally cry. And somehow, that silent presence was the warmest thing Eliza had ever felt. 1 month after that night, Eliza had changed. Not in ways everyone could see, but in small ways. She slept better. She ate more. She no longer flinched at sudden sounds. She began to go outside, walking in the park near the building, sitting for coffee at the small corner cafe. Ordinary things ordinary people did. Things she had never been allowed to do for 12 years. She was still living in the penthouse. No one told her she had to leave, and she didn't want to. Not because she feared the outside world, but because this was the only place she felt she belonged. This was the place where someone saw her, truly saw her. Her phone vibrated one afternoon. An unfamiliar number. She almost didn't answer, but something pushed her to pick up. Eliza. Raymond Hartwell's voice came through the line, and Eliza felt the blood in her body turn cold. You have to help your father. Raymond's voice trembled. It was no longer the cold, commanding voice of the past 12 years. This was the voice of a man who was drowning. You have to talk to Ashford. Ask him to spare me. I know I was wrong. I'll give the money back. I'll do anything. But you have to help me. You're the only one who can help me now. Eliza held the phone. Her hand didn't shake. Her heart didn't race. She only felt empty. Empty and tired. You used me as a sacrifice, she said, her voice strangely calm. 12 years. Do you know that? 12 years you took my name, my signature, my future. You turned me into a tool. And when you got into trouble, you sent me to the Meridian Club to take the blame for you. You planned to let me die in your place. Silence on the other end of the line. Then Raymond spoke, his voice breaking as if he were about to cry. I was wrong. I'm sorry. I know I treated you badly. But you're still my child. Blood is still blood. You can't watch your father die. Blood. Eliza wanted to laugh. To laugh in the face of the man who had used those 2 words to chain her for 12 years. But she didn't laugh. She only said, her voice cold as ice, I'm not your child. I never was. You never saw me as a person. You only saw me as a tool. And now that tool isn't in your hands anymore. Figure it out yourself. Eliza, Raymond shouted. You can't do this to me. You owe me. I don't owe you anything. She cut in, her voice still calm but each word like a blade. I never owed you anything. She ended the call. Her hand trembled slightly. Not from fear, but because for the first time in her life, she had said no to Raymond Hartwell. For the first time in her life, she had stood up for herself. She turned and saw Constantine standing in the doorway of his study, watching her. He had heard everything. She didn't know how long he had been there, but she didn't mind. She had nothing left to hide. Raymond Hartwell, Constantine said, his voice low and even. What do you want me to do with him? The question made Eliza stop. She looked at Constantine, looked at the most powerful man in Philadelphia, asking her, a girl with nothing, what he should do to the man who had destroyed her life. He was giving her the choice, the power to decide Raymond's fate, Eliza thought. Thought about the last 12 years. Thought about the sleepless nights. Thought about signing papers she didn't understand. Thought about the bruises. Thought about the night at the Meridian Club. Thought about the $5 million briefcase and the death sentence Raymond had prepared for her. She could say kill him. She knew Constantine would do it. One order from him and Raymond Hartwell would disappear from the earth as if he had never existed. But she didn't want that. I don't want him dead, Eliza said, her voice slow and clear. I want him alive. Alive and losing everything. Alive and watching everything he built turn to ash. Alive and knowing the daughter he planned to sacrifice escaped. Alive and knowing she's living better than he ever will. That's a punishment heavier than death. She paused, looking straight into Constantine's eyes. Death is an ending, but living in ashes is a never-ending hell. Constantine looked at her. For a long time, and for the first time, Eliza saw something in those gray eyes. Not surprise, but recognition. The recognition of someone seeing her as an equal. "All right," he said. "One word. Just one word." But in that single word, Raymond Hartwell's fate was sealed. Raymond Hartwell didn't die, exactly as Eliza wanted. He lived, and he lost everything, one piece at a time, slowly, painfully, like a candle burning down to the wick. In the first week after Raymond's call, his house was repossessed by the bank. The 4-story mansion in the wealthy suburbs where he had lived for 20 years, the house with the swimming pool and the garden and the wine cellar, all gone with a single signature from a bank official. Raymond stood on the sidewalk, watching them seal the doors, and he couldn't do anything. In the second week, the expensive cars were taken away. The Mercedes, the BMW, the Porsche, 3 cars he once proudly showed off to friends, now belonging to creditors. He stood there, watching them loaded onto trucks and driven away, without a single protest, because he knew protesting wouldn't change anything. In the third week, the furniture was auctioned off, the Italian leather sofas, the paintings he bought to display status even though he didn't understand art, the wine bottles he had collected for 10 years, all appraised, numbered, and sold to the highest bidder. He wasn't allowed to keep anything, not a single object, to remind him of the life he once had. In the second month, the people who once called him friends vanished completely. There were no more weekend golf games, no more lavish parties, no more handshakes and false smiles. Raymond Hartwell became a name no one wanted to mention, a lesson in what happens when you betray the wrong man, a story whispered at parties like a warning. In the third month, Priscilla sent papers renouncing their father-daughter relationship. She didn't want any connection to Raymond anymore, and didn't want the Hartwell name dragging her into the abyss with him. The documents came through lawyers, cold and professional, with no explanation and no goodbye. Raymond signed with a trembling hand, and for the first time he understood what it felt like to be abandoned by family. In the fourth month, Raymond's health collapsed, not from any specific illness, but because his body, after 60 years of comfort, couldn't endure poverty. He grew thinner, his hair turned gray, his eyes sank deep, his back bent. The man who once walked like an owner now shuffled like a beggar. 6 months later, Raymond Hartwell lived in a cheap rented room in the worst outskirts of Philadelphia, a room barely 15 square meters, with mold-stained walls, a ceiling that leaked when it rained, and a window facing a garbage-filled alley, smaller even than the basement apartment Eliza once lived in. He worked at a convenience store, standing at the counter, stocking shelves, mopping floors, the kind of work he once despised, the kind of work he believed existed only for other people. Now he worked 10 hours a day just to pay rent and buy food. Every night, he lay on the creaking bed and stared at the cracked ceiling, thinking about everything he had lost: the mansion, the cars, the parties, Priscilla and Eliza, the stepdaughter of his late wife whom he had used as a tool for 12 years, the girl he planned to sacrifice to save himself. Where was she now? He didn't know. He only knew she was living better than he was, in a safer place than he was, protected by someone while he had no one left. And somehow, that hurt more than losing money, more than losing his house, more than losing his biological daughter. Because every time he thought of Eliza, Raymond remembered that everything he had lost was his own doing. He had been given the chance to treat her like a human being. He didn't take it, and now he was paying the price, not with death, but with life. Life among ashes, life without love, life where waking up every day was a punishment. Just as Eliza had said, death is an ending, but living in ashes is a never-ending hell. Raymond Hartwell was living in that hell, and he would live in it until the day he died. 6 months later, Eliza Hartwell walked into the Meridian Club. The same basement, the same space, the same dim golden lights, and the scent of expensive cigars. But everything was different. 6 months ago, she had entered wearing a cheap coat and worn-down heels. She had entered with bruises on her wrist and a slap still burning red on her cheek. She had entered like a mouse wandering into a nest of snakes. Now she walked in with Constantine Ashford at her side. She walked in with her head held high and her back straight. She walked in like someone who belonged here. Because she did belong here. Because she belonged beside the man holding her hand. Jonathan Mercer, the owner of the Meridian Club, was already waiting at the entrance. He bowed his head as they stepped inside. "Miss Hartwell, Mr. Ashford, it's an honor to welcome you." "Miss Hartwell," No longer trash. No longer a fraud. No longer the girl who had money thrown in her face and was dragged across the floor. Now she was Miss Hartwell. Welcomed, respected, seen as a human being. They walked through the main hall. The people in the room stood up as they entered, not because of Constantine, but because of Eliza, because everyone knew the story. Everyone knew who this woman was to the most powerful man in Philadelphia. Everyone knew what had happened to Margaret Vance after she dared to humiliate her. Eliza looked around, looked at the place where she had once knelt, where money had once scattered across the floor, where she had been called trash in front of strangers. She didn't feel hatred. She didn't feel pain. She felt peace. Peace, because she knew those days were over. Peace because she knew she was no longer the person she had been that night. They completed their business and left. Nothing extraordinary, just an ordinary transaction. But for Eliza, it was how she closed a chapter of her life. Closed it to open a new one. That night, in the penthouse, Eliza stood by the window looking out over Philadelphia. The city shimmered below like millions of stars. A city where she once didn't belong. Now it was her home. Constantine came to stand beside her, silent, as always. But that silence wasn't cold anymore. It was warm. It was safe. It was home. That night, when I saw you kneeling on the floor, Constantine said slowly, "I wondered how much you had endured, how many times you had been used, how many times you had been discarded, how many times you had been treated as less than human, and you still didn't break." Eliza turned to look at him. "I didn't intervene because you were weak," Constantine continued, his gray eyes holding hers. "I intervened because they didn't know who they were standing in front of. They looked at you and saw a victim. I looked at you and saw someone who survived hell and still kept her dignity." Eliza felt warmth spread through her chest. "What happened that night didn't happen because you didn't deserve respect," Constantine said. "It happened because they were too blind to see who you truly were. That was their failure, not yours. Never yours." Eliza placed her hand on Constantine's chest. The first time she had reached for him, her small hand against his expensive suit, the hand that had once signed papers she didn't understand, the hand that had trembled holding a $5 million briefcase, the hand that was now touching the heart of the most powerful man in Philadelphia. "Thank you," she said softly, "not for saving me, but for showing me that I was worth saving." Constantine placed his hand over hers, a hand that had ordered deaths, a hand that had destroyed empires. That hand now held hers as if she were the most precious thing he had ever touched. "You didn't need saving," he said. "You only needed someone to see you. And you did," Eliza whispered. "From the moment you stepped down the stairs," Constantine replied. Silence. They stood there by the window, hand in hand, watching the city sleep below, and Eliza understood that this was where she belonged. Not because of the luxury penthouse, not because of power or money, but because here, someone saw her, truly saw her, and loved what they saw. Respect shouldn't require recognition. Dignity shouldn't require proof. And the way we treat others should come from the heart, not from what they have or who they are. But if the world hasn't given you that yet, be patient, be strong, because somewhere out there, someone will see you, truly see you. And when they appear, every pain you endured will become the road that led you to them. Eliza Hartwell found that person, and she hopes you will too. This story reminds us that everyone deserves to be treated as a human being, no matter what they wear, how much money they have, or where they come from. Never judge anyone by appearances, because you don't know what they've been through, and you don't know who they truly are. Live with kindness. Treat others with the respect they deserve. And if you're in a difficult place like Eliza once was, remember that you don't owe anyone anything just because they didn't throw you out onto the street. You deserve to be loved. You deserve to be respected. You deserve to live a good life. If this story touched your heart, please like and share so more people can hear it. If you'd like to listen to more moving stories like this every day, subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications so you won't miss any videos. How did you feel about Eliza and Constantine's story? Have you ever been judged unfairly because of appearances? Do you believe respect should be given from the first moment, not after people learn who you are? Share your thoughts in the comments below. We'd truly love to hear what's in your heart. Every comment you leave is a powerful source of encouragement for us to continue bringing meaningful stories like this. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video. We wish you and your loved ones good health, a joyful life, peaceful days, and hearts full of love. See you in the next video. Goodbye.